Welcome back, everybody. It's your main mathematician Shen coming to you live from Summit Academy. In this video, we're working on being able to calculate taxes using income tax brackets and standard deductions. So make sure you're checking out those videos that are on the initial page. That way you can see how some of those work, as they have pretty good examples on there. But for each of these problems, we can use this tax bracket that they gave us here, and we'll refer to it throughout the problem. So notice how it has whatever the tax rate is, and then it says what the single filers are, and then the for married individuals filing joint returns. And the key part is, a lot of people are just going to say, okay, well, they make X dollars, and I'll find where it's at, and then that's what they rate. But you have to actually do it a different way, and which is what we're going to be showing today. So for the first one, it says Felix has a gross income of $18,000. So it says, what is his total tax due? So what we're going to do is we're going to take 18,000. We're going to take 18,000 minus the standard deduction, which is going to be 12,950. So this is going to be your standard deduction. I think this is from 2022, but that's okay because we're gonna just be practicing this. And so then we're gonna say this is going to be equal to $5,050, which is going to be the taxable income. And so what we have to do now is we now take this amount and we go to the bracket. So let's go back up to the bracket, and we're going to say, okay, well, where does 5,000 fall in between? It'd fall in between this bracket right here. Again, it's for a single filer because it's just Felix, and we're going to take 10% of that amount. So let's see what it looks like. So I'm going to say 10% of $5,050. So let me pull up Desmos real quick. So I'm going to take 10% of, again, you just for that button you do Shift 5 and it does percent of. I'm going to do 10% of $5,050, which is 505. So if we go back, I'm going to say, let me cancel that out. So I'm going to say 10% of $5,050 is equal to $505. So that's going to be the total taxes owed. Total taxes owed. All right. Moving on to this next question, it says Serena made $42,000 in the calendar year. How much does she owe in federal taxes? So let's first find out. So we have to first find out the taxable income. So we're going to do, let's do a different color now. Let's do pink, we'll say. Do 42,000 minus that standard deduction, so 12,950, which is going to be equal to $29,050. And that's going to be, again, our taxable income. And so now what we can do is we can say, okay, since that goes past this first bracket, because she makes more than 10,000, what we have to do is we're going to break it apart in between these two. And so what we're going to do is, and they kind of represent it really nice in the video too. What they do is they say, okay, from this section, which is going to be 10%, when I say that's going to be from 0 to 10,275. And then past that is going to be 12%, which we are going to go up to our amount, which is 29,050. So what we do is we subtract these two numbers. So we're going to say, okay, we have, let's do 10,275 minus 0. is going to be 10,275. And you're probably wondering, well, why did you subtract those two? Well, it's because I have to take 10% of this number, and I have to subtract these two because that's what the remaining amount is. So that's what I'm going to do right here. I'm going to take, okay, same kind of deal. I'm going to take 29,050 minus 10,275. Subtract those two, and I get 18,775. And so now what do I do with these numbers? Well, I'm going to do 10% of this 10,275 plus the 12% of, say 12% of 18,775. So I have to take the different brackets. This is the key part. I take the different percentages for those different brackets. So even if you make, 42,000, you have to, apply it differently depending on your remaining amount. So I'm going to calculate that real quick. So let me show you what it looks like in Desmos. So I'm going to say, I have 10% of 10,275, and then plus I do 12% of 18,775. Add those two together to get our total. So we're going to say our total amount is going to be the 3,280 and 50 cents. So let me write that down. So it's going to be equal to $3,280.50. So you can make sure you're doing your labels. We're going to say that's going to be our total taxes owed. All right, moving on to the next part. It says Kennedy has a gross income of $95,000. What is her total tax due? So same setup. We have to now say, okay, well, let's first find our taxable income. So we're going to say 95,000 minus 12,950. It's going to be equal to 82,050 dollars. So that's going to be the taxable income. You can make sure you label your different parts. So now I can say, let's say the different parts here. So I'm going to say for 10%, again, same setup. We're going to say from 0 to 10,000, 10,275. Then we go 12% is going to be let's see, 12% is going to be the next part. So we're going to say we're going to take 41,775. And then the next section is going to be 22%. Made that a little big. So then 22% is going to be from that to the 82,050. You're going to make sure you're checking out where I get these numbers from, and go back to your graph. So we have to use, we have to say, okay, this is going to be the largest amount at 10%. This is going to be the largest amount at 12%. And then since our amount falls under the 89,000, that's where we're going to stop at. Figure that out real quick. Okay, so that's where I'm getting these, numbers from. So now we're going to do 10% of, well, I'm going to slow down. Let's make sure I do my subtraction first. So I do 10,275 minus 0 is the 12,275. Then I do 41,775 minus the 10,275 to get the taxable amount at 12%. So I'm going to do 31,500. And then lastly, I have to subtract these two, so I'm going to say 82,050 minus 41,775. So I'm just subtracting these numbers in between, and so at 40,275, I'm going to be taking 22% of that number. So let's add these all together. So I'm going to say I have 10% of 10,275 plus 12% of 31,500 plus I have 22% of 40,275. So when you add those numbers together, again, let me see in decimals what it looks like. Pull that back up. All right, and let me make it a little bit bigger here. It's a little bit easier to see. Let's do like that. Okay, so I'm going to do, I say 10% of 10,275 plus 12% of 31,500 plus 22% of 40,275. So now the total taxes due is going to be this amount right here. So 13,668. So I'll write that number down inside here. So I'm going to say total taxes due. What did I say? 16? No, 13. 13,668. That's again total taxes due. All right. Moving on to number 4 now. It says Alex and Tori are married and filing jointly. Their gross income is $150,000. How much do they owe in federal taxes? So now we have to use a different amount. We actually have to use the joint amount, and I should say the married amount. So let's find out what that's going to be. Well, actually, I have to find again my taxable income, so it's still going to be the same amount. However, since there's 2 people, so 2 people, I have to say it's going to be 2 times the parentheses. I say it's going to be 2 times that 12,950 is going to be equal to the 25,900, because that's going to be standard deduction for joint filing. So it's going to take, a couple things here, but we'll get it. So we're going to subtract this. So we're going to do 150,000. That's enough. Okay, 150,000 minus the 25,900 is going to be equal to the 124,100. That's going to be our taxable income. Let me actually change colors here. Let's go back to white. And so now let's draw out our graph here. So I'm going to say, again, I have 10%, still the same amounts. However, since we're talking about that, since we're talking about the joint returns, we're going to look at, what did we say, 124? Yeah, 124,000, which is going to be this bracket right here. So we're going to do this number and this number as well. Okay, so we're going to say from 0 to 20,550. And we say 12% is going to be up to 83,500. And then we get our next bracket, which is 22%. We say up to our amount, which is 124,100. So let's subtract these out. So I have 20,550 minus 0 is going to be that same number again. Then we say we have 83,500 minus 20,550. Subtract those two. This is still the same number. This is going to be 63,000. Sorry, it was 80. Should be another 5 in there. So 85,550. Same here. Here's that. 550. Okay. Now that's how we get 63,000. And then our last bracket, we have 124,100 minus the 83,550, which gives us 40,550. Again, make sure you take your percentages of these numbers. So I'm going to actually say, your turn here in a second. I'm going to say type in Desmos your turn. What you have to do is you're going to say 10% of 20,550 plus 12% of 63,000. And then we have lastly plus 22% of this value right here, which is the 40,550. So pause that video, try it out on your own, see what you get. All right, so for the number 5 now, it says Aiden has a gross income of 63,000 and takes a standard deduction. Their total taxes that are due are going to be 6,628. So it says for part A, what is their taxable income, what is their marginal tax rate, and what is their effective tax rate. So a couple of parts of this, so let's make sure you can set it up. So we're going to say for this one, we just do, again, be able to subtract. So we're going to say 63,000 minus the deduction, which is 12,950. Actually change different color. Let's do orange this time. So 63,000 minus the 12,950. And so our taxable income is going to be $50,050. So that's going to be part A. So now for the second part, it says, what is the marginal tax rate? And what that means is we take this value that they have here, and we're going to divide it. So we're going to say 6,628 divided by the taxable income, which is $50,050. That's going to be about 0.1324. So again, that marginal tax rate, though, again, if we looked at that, the bracket, we say 50,500, so that would be at 22%. So let's say that. So we're going to say for part B, we're going to say it goes into the 22% bracket. And this is going to be part C, is right here. So let's change it to a percent. So this is going to be 13.24%. All right. For that last one says Liam has a gross income of $120,000 and takes standard deduction. What are going to be the total taxes due? So what we can say for this one, I'm going to give this one back to you for you to try it. But what you can set up is you do 120,000 minus the 12,950. So when we subtract, we're going to say this is going to be 107,050. So this is $107,050. That's going to be the taxable income. So set up your different brackets. So you're going to say something like this. Let's try to draw this out. You have to do from 0 to 10,275. It's going to be 10%. And we say 12% is going to be from here to the next number, 41,775. Then we do 22%. That number to 89,075, and then lastly we do 24% from that number to the last, which is $107,050. So set up your brackets, set up your amounts. Again, we're going to say find the total taxes due. His marginal tax rate will be 24%. And the effective tax rate, whatever number you find, so you'll find your percents of a number from part A. So you're going to take your answer from part A and put it in for part C. So whatever you find in part A, you're going to take that amount and you're going to say, okay, whatever I find in part A, so answer from part A, I take that number divided by the taxable income, which would be $107,050, and you should be equal to 0.1824, which is about 18.24%. So try to get an answer. So that would be this is for part C. So try to get an answer for part A. Again, your turn is part A. And make sure you can ask questions. Be sure to do that next part where you do the reflections. And as always, super slam that subscribe button.